I should have walked out the second she laughed. That's the truth. Not when she touched his arm, not when the room started whispering, but when she looked straight at me and smiled like I was already gone. You ever stand in a room full of people and feel completely erased? That was me. The ballroom glittered. Crystal lights, champagne, soft music pretending nothing ugly was happening. But I wasn't watching the chandeliers. I was watching my wife, Emily, and the way she leaned into Eric Parker like she belonged there instead of beside me. She didn't even try to hide it. Her fingers traced his sleeve. His hand rested low on her back. Too familiar, too easy. And every time she laughed, she made sure it carried, like she wanted witnesses. I stayed still. I don't know why. Maybe pride, maybe disbelief. Maybe I thought if I didn't react, it wouldn't be real. But it was real. And everyone saw it. A colleague leaned toward me and muttered, "You okay, man?" I nodded. I wasn't. When Emily finally came over, she didn't come alone. Eric followed, smug and relaxed. "Oh, Daniel," she said sweetly. Too sweet. Eric was just saying how dull corporate dinners can be. You wouldn't know, though. You fade into the background so well. A few people laughed. Not loud, just enough. I felt the heat rise in my chest. That sharp burn of humiliation, the kind that makes you want to flip tables or disappear entirely. But I didn't. I took a slow sip of champagne instead, and that's when something shifted inside me. Not anger. Clarity. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me small, emotional, pathetic. So I gave her nothing. Silence. And somehow that made her louder, more desperate. Eric leaned in and whispered something in her ear. She threw her head back, laughing harder than necessary. A performance. For the first time in years, I looked at her and didn't feel love. I felt distance, like I was already watching the end of something, and then the doors at the far end of the ballroom opened. The whispers changed, heads turned, the energy in the room tightened, and I followed their gaze. That's when I saw her, Clare Parker, Eric's wife, standing at the entrance, and she wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me. The moment our eyes met, I felt it. Not attraction, recognition, like she understood something no one else in that room did. Clare didn't rush. She didn't storm in. She walked slowly, heels soft against marble, posture straight, face calm. Too calm. The whispers followed her. That's Eric's wife. This is about to explode. Emily saw her too. I watched the color drain from my wife's face. Her fingers slipped off Eric's sleeve like she'd touched fire. He sat up straighter, adjusting his jacket, suddenly aware of how exposed he looked. For the first time that night, Emily stopped laughing. And I realized something unsettling. I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I was curious. Clare didn't look at her husband, not once. She passed him like he was a stranger in a crowded elevator. Her eyes stayed on me. My pulse picked up. Why me? I felt a strange pull in my chest. Not romantic, not yet, just awareness. Like the room had narrowed to a single line between us. When she reached our table, the music faltered. Even the string quartet seemed unsure. She stopped inches from me, close enough that I could see the steadiness in her breathing. Up close, she wasn't angry. She wasn't shaking. She was controlled. That unsettled me more than a scream would have. Emily finally found her voice. "Clare," she forced a smile. What a surprise. Clare didn't answer her. She kept looking at me, and then she said something so quiet I almost thought I imagined it. "You don't deserve that." My throat tightened. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it landed harder than Emily's mockery ever could. For a second I felt exposed, seen. And that scared me, because being seen meant I couldn't pretend anymore. Eric cleared his throat. "Clare, let's not make this—" She raised a hand slightly. He stopped talking, just like that. The room held its breath. I didn't know what she was about to do. I didn't know what I wanted her to do. Part of me wanted to step back. This was their marriage, their mess. But another part of me, the part that had been shrinking all night, felt something rising. Strength. Clare slowly reached for my hand, and I didn't pull away. Emily's glass trembled, and in that fragile silence I realized something irreversible was about to happen. I didn't stop her. That's what haunts me. Her finger slid into mine, steady and warm, and I just let it happen. The room gasped, not loud but sharp. Emily's breath caught beside me. I could feel it without looking at her. Clare's grip wasn't desperate. It wasn't shaky. It was deliberate, like she had already decided this was the move. My heart pounded, not because I wanted revenge, but because I suddenly felt chosen, and that terrified me. Eric stood halfway out of his chair. "Clare, don't—" She didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on mine. "Are you going to let them keep doing this to you?" She asked quietly. Them, not just Emily. The room, the whispers. The smirks. The narrative. I swallowed. For months, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. That Emily's distance was stress. That the late nights were business. That I was imagining the way she looked at Eric. But standing there, holding Claire's hand in front of everyone, the truth felt undeniable. I wasn't crazy. I was humiliated. Emily finally snapped. Let go of him. Her voice cracked. Not strong, not commanding, just thin. Claire tilted her head slightly, still calm. Why? That one word shifted the power completely. Why? Why did Emily get to parade her affair like a trophy while I stood there silent? Why did I have to be dignified while she performed cruelty? Emily's cheeks flushed deep red. Because he's my husband. I almost laughed at that. My husband. The word sounded hollow. Claire's thumb brushed lightly against my knuckles. A small gesture, almost protective. It shouldn't have meant anything. But it did. For the first time all night, someone was standing beside me instead of above me, and I felt the tension building towards something explosive. Claire leaned closer, close enough that I could feel her breath, and then she did something that made the entire ballroom freeze. She rose onto her toes and pressed her lips to mine. The kiss wasn't wild. It wasn't rushed. It was calm. That's what shattered the room. Her lips touched mine with quiet certainty, like she wasn't stealing something and she was reclaiming it. For half a second, I forgot where I was. Forgot the chandeliers. Forgot the guests. Forgot Emily. Then the sound hit. Gasps, a glass shattering. Someone whispering, "Oh my God." Claire didn't grab me. She didn't pull me closer. She simply held the moment long enough for everyone to understand it. And then she stepped back, slowly. My pulse was roaring in my ears. I should have felt guilt. I expected it. Instead, I felt something else. Relief. Emily's scream cut through everything. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice cracked, sharp and desperate. The kind of sound someone makes when control slips through their fingers. Eric looked like he'd been slapped. Pale. Frozen. Smaller than I'd ever seen him. "You kissed my husband," Emily shouted. Claire finally turned toward her. "You were done with him the moment you decided to humiliate him." Her voice was steady. No shouting. No trembling. That steadiness hit harder than anger ever could. I felt the weight of eyes on me. Waiting. Would I apologize? Would I step away? Would I crawl back into silence? Instead, I did the one thing no one expected. I stayed beside Claire, not holding her now, not touching her, just standing there, choosing not to retreat. Emily's eyes met mine. For a flicker of a second, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Fear, not because I'd kissed another woman, but because I hadn't begged her to stop. Eric finally found his voice. "Claire, you're embarrassing yourself." She looked at him like he was irrelevant. "No," she said softly. "I'm correcting something." That word landed heavy. Correcting. The room shifted again. The whispers weren't about me anymore. They were about them, about the affair, about the public cruelty. Emily's breathing turned uneven.
"Daniel, say something."
And that's when I realized something devastating. I didn't know who she was talking to anymore. The man she used to control, or the man who had just stopped playing along. Emily looked at me like I had betrayed her. That almost made me laugh. "You're just going to stand there?" She demanded, her voice shaking now. "After she kissed you. After she kissed me. Not after you humiliated me. Not after you paraded your lover in front of everyone. No, the line was drawn at my reaction. I felt something inside me finally settle. A long, painful truth clicking into place. "You didn't seem worried about lines earlier," I said quietly. The room went still again. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. But the words carried. Emily blinked like I'd slapped her. Eric stood up fully now, jaw tight. "This is ridiculous. Let's just leave." He reached for Claire's arm. She stepped back before he could touch her. The rejection was subtle, but it was brutal. "I'm not leaving," she said calmly. "Not until the truth stops pretending to be invisible." That hit me harder than the kiss. Invisible. That's what I'd felt all night. All year, if I was honest. Emily's eyes flickered between us. "This is insane. You're ruining everything." "No," Claire replied softly. "You already did that." The silence stretched again. I felt exposed standing there beside her. Not physically close. Not romantic, but aligned. And that scared me, because alignment means choice. And choice means consequence. Emily stepped toward me, lowering her voice, trying to regain control. "Daniel, don't do this. Don't make a scene." I looked at her, really looked at her. The panic in her eyes wasn't about our marriage. It was about the audience, about reputation, about losing the upper hand. Something inside me cooled. "You made the scene," I said evenly. "I just stopped pretending." Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Eric tried again. "Claire, you're overreacting." She smiled faintly. "No," she said. I'm done reacting. That difference hung heavy in the air. For the first time, I felt unsure. Not about Emily. About Claire. What did this kiss mean to her? Was it revenge, strategy, or something else entirely? Because when she glanced at me again, her eyes softened for just a second, and that softness confused me more than the chaos ever could. I shouldn't have noticed the way her eyes softened. But I did. For a brief second, the ballroom disappeared again. No whispers, no broken glass, just the look she gave me. And it wasn't vengeance. It was understanding. That shook me, because revenge is simple. It's clean, it burns fast and fades. Understanding lingers. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice like this was suddenly private. Daniel, we can fix this. Fix this. Like the last year hadn't happened. Like I hadn't watched her drift away piece by piece. I felt the old instinct tug at me. The instinct to smooth things over. To protect her image. To absorb the damage quietly. But Claire's presence beside me made that instinct feel weak. You weren't trying to fix anything earlier, I said. Emily's eyes flashed. So this is what? Payback? I hesitated. Was it? I turned slightly toward Clare. Is it? The question slipped out before I could stop it. She didn't flinch. No, she said softly. Payback is loud. This is clarity. Clarity. God, that word again. Eric scoffed. You're humiliating yourself. Claire finally looked at him fully, and the air between them turned cold. You humiliated yourself, she replied. I'm just not covering for you anymore. That hit deeper than I expected, because I realized something uncomfortable. I had been covering too. For Emily. For the rumors. For the way she stopped touching me months ago. I'd protected her pride at the cost of my own. And standing there now, I felt exposed. Not because of the kiss, but because I was finally done pretending. The guests weren't smirking anymore. They were watching carefully, judging differently. The narrative had shifted. Emily's voice cracked. So what now? You just walk out with her? The question wasn't angry. It was afraid. And I didn't have an answer, because walking out would mean something. It would mean choosing a side, choosing change. Claire's fingers brushed mine again, not gripping, not claiming, just a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone in that moment. And for the first time all night, I felt uncertain for a different reason. Not about losing my wife, but about what it would mean to step toward someone who actually saw me. I didn't answer Emily right away. That silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable, because she wasn't really asking if I'd walk out with Claire. She was asking if I'd walk away from her, and that's a different kind of truth. I don't know, I finally said. Honest, raw, not strategic. Emily stared at me like I just shattered something fragile. After everything? The irony almost hurt. After everything, I thought about the late nights. The cold dinners, the way she stopped reaching for my hand in public long before tonight. Claire stepped slightly aside then, not retreating, just giving me space. That gesture mattered. She wasn't pulling me. She wasn't claiming me. She was letting me choose. And that made the choice heavier. Eric laughed nervously. This is insane. It was harmless flirting. Harmless. The word made my jaw tighten. It didn't feel harmless, I said, my voice steady but lower now. More dangerous. Emily's eyes flicked to the guests again. Still watching. Always watching. This is humiliating, she whispered. I looked at her carefully. Now it is, I asked. That landed. She flinched. For a second, I saw something break in her expression. Not anger, not pride. Regret, but I didn't know if it was regret for hurting me, or regret for miscalculating the room. Claire finally spoke again, softer now. You deserve to be treated with respect. That's all this is. Respect. Such a simple word. But it felt foreign. I realized something uncomfortable in that moment. I hadn't missed passion in my marriage. I'd missed dignity. The kind where someone stands beside you, not above you. Emily swallowed hard. So what? You're just going to leave me? The question trembled, and for the first time all night I felt something close to grief. Because I loved her once. Maybe part of me still did, but love without respect starts to rot. I'm not making a decision tonight, I said quietly. Relief flickered across her face. But then I added, I'm just done pretending. And that changed everything. Because pretending was the only thing holding our marriage together. And once that was gone, so was the illusion. The illusion cracked quietly. Not with another scream. Not with shattered glass. Just with the way Emily stopped arguing. She looked at me like she was seeing me clearly for the first time in years. And I think that scared her more than the kiss. You're really different right now, she whispered. No anger, just disbelief. Maybe she thought I'd cool down. Apologize. Blame the champagne. Call it a misunderstanding. But I felt steady. Too steady. Claire shifted slightly beside me. Not touching. not guiding, just present. That presence did something to me. It made me aware of how alone I'd been standing in my own marriage. Eric finally grabbed his jacket from the chair. This is ridiculous. Claire, we're leaving. She didn't move. You can, she said calmly. I'm staying. The dismissal was quiet but brutal. He hesitated, and for a second I saw his pride fracture. Because walking out alone meant admitting he'd lost control. He muttered something under his breath and stepped back instead. The room absorbed it all. Emily looked between us again. So this is what? You two ride off into the sunset? Her attempt at sarcasm fell flat. I turned to Claire slightly. Is that what this is? There it was. The question I'd been avoiding. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw uncertainty there. Not strategy. Not revenge. Uncertainty. I don't know, she admitted softly. I just know you shouldn't be standing alone tonight. That honesty hit harder than the kiss ever did, because she wasn't promising anything. She wasn't offering escape, just solidarity. Emily let out a shaky breath. Daniel, come home with me. The words were small now, not commanding, almost pleading. My chest tightened. This was the real moment, not the kiss, not the spectacle. This, walking out with my wife, meant returning to the quiet erosion we'd been pretending wasn't happening. Walking out without her meant admitting something was broken beyond repair. I felt Claire step back slightly again, giving me room, and I realized something terrifying. No one was forcing me anymore. Not Emily, not Claire. The choice was entirely mine, and I didn't know which truth would hurt less. I looked at Emily. Really looked at her. The anger was gone now. The arrogance, too. What stood in front of me wasn't the woman who had laughed an hour ago. It was someone scared of losing control. Come home, she said again, softer this time. Home. The word used to mean warmth, safety, us. Now it felt like a question mark. I glanced at Claire. She wasn't watching Emily. She was watching me. Not pushing, not pleading, just waiting. And that patience did something dangerous. It made me feel respected. Eric finally snapped. Claire, stop humiliating yourself. He's not leaving with you. His voice carried that familiar superiority, like I was still background noise in his story. Claire didn't even look at him. He's not an object, she said quietly. He can decide for himself. That landed in my chest like oxygen. I hadn't felt like I could decide anything in months. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice again. Daniel, we can fix this, I promise. A promise, from someone who had laughed while tearing me down. I felt grief rise in my throat. Not rage. Grief, because I realized I wasn't deciding between two women. I was deciding between two versions of myself. The man who tolerated disrespect to keep peace, or the man who finally required dignity. I can't fix this tonight, I said gently. Emily's eyes filled instantly. So you're choosing her? The room leaned in again, waiting for a dramatic declaration. But life doesn't always give you clean endings. I'm choosing me, I answered. The word surprised even me. Claire inhaled softly beside me. Emily froze. Eric scoffed. But I wasn't finished. I'm not walking out with anyone, I continued. But I'm not going home to pretend everything's fine either. That silence after, it was heavier than the kiss. Emily's shoulders dropped. Not defeated, just shaken. And for the first time all night I saw doubt in her eyes. Not about me, about whether she had pushed too far. And as I stepped slightly away from both of them, I realized something irreversible. Whatever happened next, the version of me that walked into this ballroom wasn't walking out. I didn't storm out. I didn't grab Claire's hand. I didn't chase Emily either. I just stepped back, one step, and somehow that felt louder than anything that had happened all night. The room stayed quiet, like it understood this wasn't about spectacle anymore. It was about consequence. Emily looked smaller standing there, not weak, just stripped of the performance. Daniel, she whispered. And this time there was no pride left in her voice. What does that mean for us? Us. I used to fight for that word. Now it felt fragile. It means I won't be humiliated again, I said calmly. Not by you. Not by anyone. Her eyes searched my face for anger. There wasn't any, and I think that scared her more. Eric finally muttered something about drama and reached for Claire again. She stepped away once more. Firm. I'm done protecting your image, she told him quietly. Figure it out yourself. He didn't argue, because for the first time no one in the room was on his side. Claire turned toward me then. Not romantic, not possessive, just honest. You'll be okay, she said softly. 3 words, no promises, no expectations. And somehow that meant more than the kiss ever did. I nodded. I think I will. And I meant it. Emily stood frozen as I picked up my jacket. I didn't touch Claire. I didn't touch Emily either. I walked toward the exit alone. Not because I had no one, but because I finally understood something. Respect doesn't come from revenge. It doesn't come from public humiliation. It comes from refusing to stay where you're diminished. As I reached the doors, I paused for just a second, not to look back at Claire, not to look back at Emily, but to breathe. The night air hit my face, cool and steady. Inside that ballroom, a marriage cracked open. But outside, for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. And the truth is, that kiss didn't save me. Silence did.